Hi, Dream Academy friends. This is Home Economics, and we're going to be making tortillas in line with our very budgeted living. So instead of buying tortillas, we're going to be making it. Our ingredients consist of 2 cups of flour, 1¼ cup of very warm water, warm to the touch, not boiling, and 1¼ teaspoons of fine salt and 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. Let's turn you around and get started. In my bowl, I have my 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to add 1/4 cup of baking powder, or 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. I'm also going to add 1/4 of salt plus 1 teaspoon plus 1 teaspoon. All right. And I'm going to whisk that together to incorporate it all the way through. Now, with very clean hands, I am going to incorporate my hot water, and it is warm to the touch, so bath water temperature. All right. And I'm going to do it very slowly until I get a ball. And in this, I have 1¼ cups of warm water. So sometimes you'll need a little bit more, sometimes you'll need a little bit less. That is why we're incorporating it very slowly. All right, let's add some more. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty. If you're uncomfortable using your hands, you can wear gloves. But since my family is going to be the ones eating it, I'm just going to use my hands. And you're going to do this until it's not sticky. So I'm going to pause on the water and see if I can incorporate the rest of this flour in here. And I think that's probably going to be enough. It's a rainy day, so the air is humid, and so on humid days, flour needs less water. On dry days, flour will need more water. There's about ½ cup of flour left in my bowl, in my measuring cup. So I'm going to knead this all together for about 5 minutes until it comes off my hands, and I'll be right back. All right, it's starting to come off of my hands, and it's coming together nicely in a ball. The ball is still slightly sticky, which is going to help get it all off my hands. And I'm doing it in the bowl to keep from making a mess. But you can do it on your table. You can do it on your counter or a silicone mat, or a cutting board, however you want to do it. But we're being frugal, so we're also being frugal with our dishes. And because of that, we're trying to use as little as possible. There we go. Now, we have a smooth ball. We're going to let this smooth ball rest. You see, it's very tight. We're going to let it rest for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to cut it and let it rest again before we start cooking it. All right, we'll be back when it's ready. I forgot to mention, you also need to cover this with plastic wrap or with a damp towel. You want it to stay moist and not dry out. We don't want a crust to form over it. So I'm going to cover it with some clear plastic wrap. And let it rest for those 15 minutes. There we go. Now we'll be back. All right, friends, our 15 minutes are just about up. So now we need to get some flour. That's our 15 minutes. Let's turn off the timer. Okay. I'm going to take our plastic wrap. We're going to save it because we're going to need it again. And we're going to put a little flour on the table. Again, with clean hands. We're doing everything with clean hands. We're going to take our dough ball out. You see it's very pliable. We're going to turn it back into a ball so that we can cut it in what we hope will be 8 equal parts. You can use a knife for this, or let's see, we're out of frame. You can use a knife for this, or you can use a bench scraper, a pizza cutter. We're just going to come straight down. All right, that gives us 2. Come straight down. That gives us 4. Coming at an angle. Coming straight down. That gives us 8. Looks like we might just get 7 out of this because they're not quite even. All right. Now, we're going to take each one and form it into a ball. And we're going to put it back in our bowl. Form it into a ball. And put it back in our bowl. Alright. Into a ball. We need to rest it again. Because we're manipulating it. And we want all of the flour, including the flour we just added to it, to get hydrated. and rest it. Last one. See, I'm folding it and I'm pinching it together. Fold, I'm stretching it at the same, the bottom part is getting stretched as I'm pinching it, and I am pulling some. There we go. Now we have our 7 balls. Not quite even, but that's okay. You can make them small or you can make them large. You can get 4 burrito size tortillas out of here, or you can get 7 to 8 tortillas or 12 taco size. And we're going to cover it back up and we're going to let it rest for an additional 15 minutes, and we'll be back. Alright, it's been 15 minutes. We have our griddle on. You can use it on a cast iron skillet or a very hot metal non-stick, whichever one you have. But I have mine set at about 375. Okay, I'm going to uncover my dough balls and I'm going to cover the rest of them back up. I'm going to dip in flour, and while I'm dipping, I'm going to spread it out a little bit, and I'm going to take it to a spot on the table that does not have flour on it, and I'm going to roll it out. And I want to get it as thin as possible without being see-through. And as round as possible. And since I don't have a tortilla press, it's not going to be evenly rounded, but it is round enough. Here we go. And I'm going to put it right on the griddle pan. And I'm not going to walk away. Starting to form tiny little bubbles. I'm going to rotate it a little bit because the griddle pan is one heating bar that goes in an oval, and so not everything is directly above the heating bar. Now I'm going to give it a flip. And stick it in the middle of that heating bar. And while the other side is cooking, I'm going to start rolling out my next tortilla. Dip it in the flour. Flatten it out a bit. Roll it out. Now, if you wanted to turn this into naan bread, you would add 1/4 of a teaspoon more of baking powder. So instead of 1/4 of a teaspoon, you would have 1/2 of a teaspoon of baking powder. Alright, I'm going to let that rest a little bit. I'm starting to bubble up. Air pockets are forming, that means the inside is cooking. I'm going to flip it again, and for the sake of young people, I'm not going to use my hand. I'm just going to do that. see there's some golden brown spots forming. It is almost done. It's puffing up nicely. And that's what you want it to do. You want it to puff up so that you'll know the inside is completely done. Did you guys see that? It inflated like a little balloon. Okay. And that means it is done. There you go. You see that? I'm gonna get the next one that I just rolled out, and I'm gonna sit this on the table underneath a damp towel so that it won't dry out. Get the next one on. Next one is on, and I'm gonna stay monitoring it. Don't walk when you're cooking. Don't walk away. You have to walk away, turn everything off. So you're gonna stand there and pay attention to your food cooking. And remember, I've rotated it. Little bubbles are starting to form, so I am going to give it a flip. Thank you. Looks good. Stick it in the middle, off the heat bar, and I'm going to start the next one. All right. Little flour. It down. Rolling in a circle. Let's put that up there. Rolling in a circle. Get it as round as possible. While we're keeping an eye on the other one. I'm gonna flip this one over. See, it's starting to turn brown. Put it back on, and then I'm gonna wait for it to start puffing up. Now, sometimes they're not gonna puff up as big as the first one did. Sometimes it'll be a bunch of little bubbles, like this one has a bunch of little bubbles forming. And so, yeah, a bunch of little bubbles. You can pat it a little bit to make sure that the air is going all the way through. One of my Hispanic friends takes her spatula and she beats it where the air bubbles are. You don't have to do that, but I think that just makes her feel good. Starting to balloon up. I'm going to give it one more flip so the other side doesn't get too brown. Well, it's not. I can flip it back over. Yeah. And it is almost ready. And while that one is going, I'm going to go ahead and throw the next one on. tortillas rest, clean up your mess. This is what our tortillas look like. They're nice and soft and pliable because we put them in a damp towel. Otherwise, they would be like saltine crackers. Alright. Nice and soft and pliable. You can make them thinner or thicker. Let's see. You make them thinner or thicker. This one is thick because it'll need a little bit longer to rest. And this one is thin. You can look at the edges. You need a little bit longer to rest before I roll it out. That is what it's supposed to look like when you tear it. And as the cook, you get first taste. Alright, you guys have a blessed day. And I'll see you when school starts back.